Welcome to Beyond Revenue, Narratives of Revenue Leaders. I'm very happy to have Federico today in the show. Very interesting CRO from Backbone. You started your career as a consultant, analyst, and advisor, right, with stations at Julius Baer, EY, Credit Suisse, before you went to, or before you founded Backbone. But over to you. Please give a quick introduction about yourself and what's your scope of the responsibilities at Backbone.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Michael, for having me, first of all. Maybe I start with my origins. So I grew up in Geneva, but I have Spanish and German origins, so pretty multicultural. And as you said, I studied business administration, worked for 3 years in a consulting industry, in a strategy consulting firm in Paris, which I then left to co-found Backbone with Antoine and Dorian, who are my two co-founders. And at Backbone, I'm the CRO now. So the way we define this position is it's basically oversees the whole sales funnel in the wider sense. So from lead generation with marketing, performance marketing, all the way to the entire sales cycle with the sales team, basically. And this is my span of responsibilities.
Understand. And why is your role important for your organization?
Well, I would say it's one of the main KPIs that the entire company looks up to also. So it's a bit weird that it's a bit more narrow as a span of responsibilities when you consider only the sales cycle, even though also the operations team and even the tech team is also looking up to the revenue because everyone is responsible for it. But it's really key. I think what's really key and what we noticed as we grew is that the collaboration between performance marketing and the sales team is really key, and we wanted to bring them closer so that performance marketing can gather feedbacks from the sales team who are on the ground to better define strategies to generate more revenue in the end. So this is why I would say it's really important.
Yeah, I think it's a good decision to do so because the market gets faster and faster, and I think you need to discuss or you need to speak with one language towards your client, and it's better they are aligned, the revenue generating functions or the customer facing functions, as better, or you can serve your clients. So coming to the next questions, how do you see the role as a CRO in general?
So I think it's also a role that is quite flexible, and it depends a little bit on how every organization is set. So it's not really set in stone what teams should be managed by the CRO. For our organization, as I said, it's very clear there's a part of the marketing. So everything that is branding, etc., is outside of my scope. What is in my scope is really performance marketing, so the lead generation part, plus the entire sales team.
Understand. When talking about your own goals, how do you establish revenue targets, and what strategies do you employ to really reach these targets?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of two rules that are really important. First, I think things need to be kept very simple to have clarity. And second, the goal of objectives and goals is also to minimize any differences in interest, so conflicts of interest between the company and the employees, right? And in my two teams, basically, I would like to separate because the goal setting is different for the sales team than for the performance marketing. So if we start with the sales team, the main KPI we follow is literally revenue. It's broken down in many different parts. So we define our revenue targets when we discuss the business plan we do company-wide. And then once we have that, the revenue is broken down into the different markets we operate in, the different also temporalities, so break it down in quarters, months, weeks, days, and then we are able to follow every day. Did we reach the revenue target we had set, or are we below? How much percent every day do we reach? And this is one that we really also in the all hands company-wise we follow very closely. And also for the sales team, that's the main KPI. That's the main one. That's the only one that all the bonuses also are linked to, etc. And it's the I like to call it performance-oriented KPI. And then there's also another set of objectives that I set for my team that are, I mean, the order of priorities is we have performance KPI, which is revenue, and then effort-based KPIs, right? And then you can classify them by how much performance-oriented they are, how much output-oriented, and how much effort-oriented or let's say input-oriented they are. And like, if to give an example, effort-oriented KPIs would be how many calls do you do, how many emails are sent out, or maybe one that is a bit in between is like how many leads do you qualify, or stuff like that. So they are kind of classified. On top of the list, there is revenue. And then the more you go down, and basically I like to check only the first one. And if the first one doesn't fit, only then I look at the next one on the list and on the next one to figure out, does the person put the effort in at least? If the result is not there, are the effort there? And then you can, this is a bit the way the system we have in place for the sales team.
And how does the marketing metrics or KPIs pay into the sales goals?
Yes, so also here the idea is to try. I mean, it has evolved a little bit. Also, I grew more as a into the role as a sales guy, because when we were just the three founders, I was just doing the sales, and then more later on, I took on also the responsibilities of performance marketing. So I'm more of a newbie here. But what I can say and what I have observed is that in the beginning, we were setting goals more in terms of like number of leads. Then we realized that not all leads have the same cost and same conversion level. So as the organization evolved, the KPI for the performance marketing went further down the funnel. So at the beginning, just leads, then qualified leads, then even more qualified leads. And now we're even thinking of saying, okay, how many clients are closed? So number of new clients, that would be a KPI that would be even more shared by the sales team, right? So if you can have like a common KPI in between sales and performance marketing, I think that allows to really align interests and get everyone to work together towards a common goal and break the silos a little bit.
Absolutely, right? So if you, let's say, in ideal world, you as a CRO, right, you have one overall goal, I guess, revenue, right? That's the, right, which you can set more or less throughout all customer-facing roles, right? If you have one goal where every role works into it, let's say top line revenue, you can then define, say, look, in order to reach this revenue, we can calculate it down from the entire funnel through, right? So, and it needs to go hand in hand. So I would say it's a good way to progress there, because if you set only marketing, for example, lead goals, right, and then marketing optimize, for example, of cost per lead and number of leads, this doesn't really work into the revenue goals, because quality of leads differ. Cost per lead's actually not so interesting if it doesn't lead to revenue. And if we have a very low lead cost and we don't reach them, this campaign doesn't work. And we can already say, right, within, I don't know, 48 hours, you can already say this lead campaign doesn't work. But if you put the goal of revenue for the marketing, I think you can much better align these both teams.
Yeah, we are not this advanced yet, but this is a bit where we're going to, and this is exactly what we observed. So we opened new channels of ads generation. We started using Facebook, which were very reduced a lot the cost per lead. We had a huge quantity of leads, but they were very low quality. So then you have to readapt the system, and also the whole sales process. It evolves as you add new channels. You need to add some nurturing. You don't want to pass the leads directly to sales because maybe they're not ready, even though for other more advanced leads further down the funnel that you acquire through other channels, you want to send them directly to. So then you start building processes in sales that run differently depending on the source of leads, right?
Absolutely. And you can use here key metrics. So for example, right, so you define clearly what is an MQL. So what does the lead need to know about us, and what do we need to know about the lead in order to pass to sales? Then we define 100% SQL. And it doesn't matter from which lead source or qualification state. An SQL is always the same in order to pass. And then you can define based on the knowledge or based on the qualification criteria, if we pass or not, or if it goes. So then you can use the technology to actually automate this. So interesting process. But let's talk about technology. What role does technology play in building a robust revenue architecture, and what are some key challenges you have faced in the last years, if you have grown so fast, to really solve these challenges?
Yeah, so technology is super, super important, of course, because basically the main challenge in order to maximize revenue and scale and grow is to really use the time of your team smartly. Basically, you only want to use them where really a human basically is needed, and everything else should be able to run automatically thanks to tech, basically. Yeah, so this can be cut out, I guess, but I just
No
had a
worries.
couple of other points. Yeah, basically technology also allows to cover for mistakes, basically, because sales cannot think of everything and to always send the right email in the right point of time. So for example, I don't know, we have set an automation that if a client is not ordering on our platform for more than a month, then there's a personal one-liner that is sent from the salesperson saying, "Hey, I noticed you haven't been ordering lately. Did everything go all right with your last order?" And those are things that are just running in the background and that start the conversations again with the clients without any human input, right? Because any time-consuming tasks or tasks you have to remind, you can automate, and there technology is key. And the second thing for which technology really is key is also that when you want to start to differentiate different processes within the sales pipeline, right? Like I said before, when you start having new sources of leads that maybe are not appropriate for the process you have set, they need to all automatically go into the right process or receive the right nurturing or path or cadency. So yeah, it just
Yeah,
makes
and
everything more.
it creates alignment, right? So because it's better you have built your, let's say, your data model, and it works through a good setup of technology. You much better align the teams and the different segments and the entire growth approach. And I'm totally with you. The technology works. You can use technology to enable your teams, so they only do tasks which actually matter, and they don't waste time in, I don't know, looking up things or needing to remind themselves about things.
And in terms also of motivation of the teams, it's great because they don't want to do the uninteresting, repetitive tasks,
Absolutely.
right? So they just
Yeah.
get to do the interesting stuff, the negotiation of the contract, the human interaction. That's where most of their value added is, right?
Yeah, we even see, I would say, a clear correlation between a good structured revenue team and a good setup and fluctuation rate in sales and marketing. Yeah? So we have
Yeah.
seen teams which are not so good structured, and the fluctuation rate is like between 15 and 25% or something. And then the
Mhm.
companies always say, it's normal to have high fluctuation in sales. And I would say, not so sure, because it's a lot of cost. And then we see very good structured teams and good technology, and they have fluctuation rate below 5%, which is
Yeah.
incredible, right? Because the cost, not only the cost, but the lost revenue you get with high fluctuation leads to much less performance.
You mentioned also the challenges we've had basically on the technology side, and I would definitely quote the main one, which was to migrate from one CRM to the other, right? So we used to, I think for the first 2 years of our journey, we were on Pipedrive as a CRM, and we decided to change and to switch to Salesforce. And that was really a big pain because it brings a lot of complexity and also a period of being between systems that in the end hurts the business, but is an investment for the long run because you open the door to many more possibilities in the future and to scale more.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we see this quite often right in the beginning. It's hard to decide already for a bigger system. So you go for let's say the lower price in the end, right? You're not going for then you hack yourself into the system because you don't want to spend too much money, and then you learn, and then it's you one day you need to evolve in order to really be able to scale. So you need to find the right point where you say, okay, it's enough the, let's say, minor system where we invested enough, but we didn't invest too much. And now we can move, we understand the business, and now we can move to a proper system. I can totally relate and feel the pain. So let's go to you personally. Name one big mistake you did as a CRO, and what was your learning about, or how did you solve it, and what did you learn from it? So I guess as more mistakes we can share, as more we can learn from each other.
Yeah, I think you could make a long list of them, but the one I can think of right now, since I mentioned also the migration, I think maybe, and also to make it maybe more generic, it's to not always have made the choices for the long run. Typically, and that's one example of them. So basically, as you were speaking about this decision making, in the first place, you go for the plug and play solution that you can just start getting started with and get some immediate results. And sometimes I would say, typically in that example, I failed to think long term and to start investing early into something that will still be the ideal solution 5 years or even 10 years down the road. And basically, you underestimate also the pain of a change like that can span over a long time. So I would not advise to changing, but if you made the wrong choice, you have to change too. So make choices for the long run, not just don't make decisions just to get started ASAP.
Yeah, I think let's put it maybe in different words. What we see is a lot of companies choose their system setup not based on their requirements, right? So our advice is here always structure your requirements, and it doesn't need to be over-engineered that it takes you a year, but think it end to end through, think about your clients, and think what you actually do, right? In a more or less top level data model or top level customer journey or customer lifecycle, because there you understand what you actually do, right? And then you can choose the system which fits to your requirements. Because I guess a lot of companies underestimate the enormous effect of technology into your company, good and bad, right? The wrong system setup has quite a bad influence, as well as the good system setup, or you have a good system but you didn't structure it, it still has a bad influence. Yeah. And then you train your people on this, let's say, the workarounds, instead of training them to do proper business.
Yeah, but I think the challenge also is that the requirements evolve over time, and it's maybe difficult sometimes to see what the requirements are going to be 3 years down the line, and the complexities you might want to add then.
Yeah, that's fair enough, but this will never change, right? So whatever you have learned from your business, and let's say you're 10 years in the business, the business still constantly needs to evolve, right? And I think if you have a system which, for example, can only partly cover your customer lifecycle, right? You already have a limit. So evolving is going to be very hard. And in the beginning, you evolve obviously faster and develop faster, but you always need to evolve. So in my opinion, you need to choose a system setup which on the top level covers your requirements and then enables you to evolve faster, right? So your system shouldn't be where if you want to do a change, it shouldn't take you a half year, right? Because the market gets faster and faster, right? It will not slow down anymore, right? It will not be like the companies founded 50 years ago, right? And then they change one thing every 3 years and it's totally fine. You see in the last, let's say on your case, the last 2 years, how many things have changed in your business, if inside, but on the outside as well.
But I think where the challenge is that when you think of it specifically for us, I mean, when we made the choice about going with Pipedrive back then, we were just 3 dudes. Me was cold calling all real estate companies in the country. The other one was trying to organize shoots as he could based on just a type form. We had absolutely no platform. We were already selling what we were doing. And it was really like we had absolutely no idea of the level of automation and the level of technology we would further down the line put into our operations and sales operations, etc.
Totally.
So, but
I
that's maybe also inexperience back then.
No, of course. But look, you need to start with something, right? So you're 3 founders and you start with something and you do it. But then there comes a certain time yeah, where you start realizing the system doesn't fit to your needs and you build workarounds, right? So you use Zapier to have more transparency. You want to have this. And there's a very thin line, let's put it like this, right? You start with a couple of workarounds, and then after a while it evolves that you have a person doing 3 days a week workarounds, right? And you need to, so starting with something and doing testing, hey, let's choose either Excel or a minor system, which where you can just do things. But you need to find the point where you realize, okay, I'm now investing so much time into workarounds, and what does it mean investing time into workarounds? It means I try to get to the status quo today. I'm not investing time in developing my company further. Yeah? And this thin line, I think so. Hey, in the beginning is the beginning, but after you have done, let's say, a couple of learnings, the three of you, and before you start hiring 5 people or 10 people into processes which are just evolved but not fully thought through, there you should think about more about your structures, because then you can faster onboard the people. The risk that they churn again is lower, right? And that's the point. So I would say in the beginning, of course, how can you know, right? So you need to learn from it.
Definitely.
Coming to my last 2 questions. So, modern revenue leadership. What do you think in the market is a common misconception or misunderstanding about this?
Well, maybe from the discussions I've had also, I think in the tech scene, people tend to have a very specific idea of what the CRO role should mean, or which teams or functions belong to it. And in the end, I think it's a role that is quite a bit more like dynamic and depends a lot on every organization. So it would be, yeah, the fact that it is a very specific thing, when in fact it can be a bit defined as you want. Some might even put some operations in it, because it also has an impact on revenue.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's a bit like, to me, it's not something very specific. When you read the definitions on HubSpot white papers or stuff like that, it is also, I think, quite broad, and a lot of things can, and there's a lot of room for interpretation and adaptation to every organization, right? So
No,
yeah,
absolutely. I'm totally with you. I believe modern revenue leadership, or why the role of the CRO has evolved, is right. We have traditionally CMO, CSO, and tendencial or potentially COO. But the biggest challenge between CMO and CSO, in my opinion, is that they didn't work hand in hand, right? They tried, so everybody fixes their challenges, has their goals, yeah, and works on their topics, and then they decide on their tools and their strategies. And then they realized after a while there is not much alignment between the teams. So we structured meetings to talk about it, right? And the modern revenue leadership, why is evolving, is because the market gets so fast and the client have so many information. We cannot have this friction between the teams. We need to work on the client hand in hand throughout the teams. Like for you, for example, marketing, sales, we need to work hand in hand in order to be fast. And that's why, in my opinion, that's modern revenue leadership, to have one role like the CRO leading the entire revenue team or the 2 teams, and then you have the VPs obviously executing as an expert on the teams, but they aligned with one goal and with one message. And I think that's in my opinion, the biggest change. Yeah, and that's the potential as well. And I think I believe it's a good change, right? I believe it's the right decision to do so.
yeah, I think the CRO role is there more to break the silos than
Absolutely.
to bring like knowledge about like technical knowledge about a function. And this is why also, if you compare it to all the other titles, CMO, it's marketing, CTO is technology, COO is operations, so they are all functions. But CRO, it's a KPI revenue, it's a company-wide KPI, so it really stands for allowing for coordination between the teams and strategizing, basically.
Totally with you. Perfectly described. So more or less, that was my last question. So how do you see the role as the CRO evolve in the future? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything to add here?
Yeah, no, but I think it's a bit what I said. But yeah, I would see it as gaining importance, I think, because breaking the silos is really important, and this is a bit what many organizations are lacking right now. So I would say it will gain importance for the reasons I mentioned before.
Perfect. Federico, thank you very much. Very interesting conversation, and thanks for sharing your insights.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye-bye.